I stare at the corpse in the mirror. How desperately dry. Clay-colored skin clings to its skull. Rubbery. How narrow its tired eyes are, weighed down by the dark satchels hanging from them. How many broken vessels I could count beneath its sullen cheeks. A nebula of spider veins. A paint-splattered canvas. Children do not want to see this. I am the owner of this dead reflection. Hello, world. I think about insomnia and how many dreams it has kept me from lately. How it chokes our brains, sending the signals between the nerve cells into gridlock. Suddenly each of the signals starts to short circuit. Less and less manage to squeeze out the darker tissues we call gray matter. Life loses its high definition. My apartment is 7 stories, neighboring an abandoned furniture store. Most nights, as I lie on my springy mattress, the ceiling starts to scream. A woman's grating voice, seeking through the studs and the thin layers of drywall. I can hear her voice clearly, as though she were right next to me. She says she's sorry. She says her job isn't easy, and she begs the other voice not to hurt her. These are all so shrill, caterwauling sounds of cats humping in the alley below my window. Together these screams and the cat's wails form a duet. A terrible, terrible sound that makes me think about Holly. My clothes are piled on the couch. This is because there is a waterfall in the closet. The landlord says he'll have the leak fixed soon, but has not found the time yet. I've complained again to him about the screaming ceiling. He says he'll have a look into it. This morning I noticed the brand new car he was driving, an electric one, because he cares about the environment. Nobody else complains about the noises upstairs. In these halls, most occupants would rather avoid attention. Still, in bed I look at the clock, 1:30. I look back at the screaming ceiling. I look at the clock again, 8 hours have passed. When did I fall asleep? I think about Holly and how much I hate her. The studio's dressing room is wide enough to fit 3 to 4 people with their own mirror space. Lining the back wall are assorted racks of different clothes, hats, and accessories. My seated shadow pulls along the dark wood flooring. God's manufactured light shines out the mounted bulbs lining the mirror I'm using. They reveal every imperfection, every slivered gradient of actuality. I dab the teardrop-shaped sponge and slather on another coat of foundation. I notice 3 scratches on my left arm, deep grooves of missing skin. When did that happen? I shrug. A splitting nova of pain pulses behind my eye, another migraine, the 5th one this week. I can feel the blood rush and pound through my mushy crevices of my brain. I think of blood clots. Wonder if one is in my brain right now, swelling like a great made of jelly. I wonder how many people woke up this morning with a smile, utterly ignorant of the calcifying clump forming inside of them. Over time, all of our brains start to shrink. This causes the vessels that bridge the brain to be more likely to tear, dropping us into the calm, quiet depths of a coma. I swallow a few more pills to sedate the pain. Soon enough, I can no longer see the dark, satchel tints of the web spider veins imprinted on my cheeks. They're all buried beneath a sheet of concealer. Do whatever it takes, my father would tell me on my way to rehearsals. Make yourself cry, make yourself laugh, lie to the limelight, whatever it takes to land the part. Got it? Got it. My father wanted to quit his job and retire early. There it is, straight ahead, my big break. Now my cheeks are rosy and blushing with life. My lips are smooth and creased into a soft, cupid smile. And once again my skin has regained the counterfeit glow of fiction. I am no longer the corpse in the mirror. Hello, world! I check the clock. Call time. T-minus 10 minutes. I wrap up my time in the dressing room, applying a few final touch-ups, wearing a baby blue dress shirt, slick black pants, knee-length white coat with flutters around, my legs. And this is the role I play. I head to the studio floor. The set I reach is small, virtually utilizing every inch of space it can. The tall temporary walls are whitish blue, against the soft background of the painted thin plywood that is a metal cart. Vague, unlabeled boxes and containers line the top next to the amber glass of penicillin bottles. Designated spots on the wall have frame prints of anatomical skeleton art and depictions of different organ functions. In the center of the room is an examination table with Pacific blue upholstery. Together these things form a little piece of stolen space. A doctor's office. The set is waiting for something. A surrogate to complete the illusion of life. We call these surrogates actors. A nameplate is drilled on the door in the clear view of the audience. Office of Dr.Sammy. I am Dr.Sammy, one of the warm and welcoming characters for our American education series, Blue Avenue. The show's premise takes place on a fictional street in the outer boroughs of New York, a place where human actors and puppets come together to teach children valuable lessons, a place with no discarded heroin needles or sidewalks littered with the homeless. The show was fresh past its pilot and still trying to gain traction, far from competing with the other behemoths of the network industry. Dr. Sammy's role is to educate children on practicing diet, the importance of physical activity, and the ins and outs of our body's function. I don't have a doctorate. I've read a lot of books. I look over the props for today's shoot. The medical instruments have been graced with, of course, the stethoscope's tubing is cracked. One of its white plastic ear tips is missing. More shoddy work from Holly. Holly, the lead of our props department. Holly, the girl with the plump, fat, injected lips and distant, broken trumpet laugh. Holly, the gatekeeper of information. Holly, the one that I hate. I've complained about her props. I've complained severely about them. They're old and worn and falling apart. It is her responsibility to fix things like this, to feed the aesthetics with decent little lies. But Holly is a penny pincher. Most requests given to her about ordering new and undamaged props are met with the same candid response. Pursed lips, a few lines scribbled in her notepad, and a heavy clockwork sigh. Sorry, that's just outside our budget. What did you write there? What was that budget actually, Harley? She's fully aware of my dislike of her. It was what fed the trademark smirk she wore when our eyes every so often met. A cocky, patronizing smirk. And I'm not going anywhere smirk. At 8:26 a.m., Holly took the bus to work. At 9:46 p.m., Holly took the bus home. Morning and night on the dot. The bus station she used was a few blocks from the studio. She always walked alone. Beyond the sets are the shifting, stressed silhouettes of the film crew, clutches of them, operating no less than a military unit, their exhausted faces dragging their fatigued bodies to complete the task. Push a button, rig the lights, man the cameras. They are the living cells of our make-believe organism. The group and the electric cells communicate with the key group cell. That cell communicates with the gaffer cell, and that cell communicates to the director of photography cell. They do not share the viewer's imagination. They do not express the magic. The cell does not stop to marvel at its work. We used to have a larger crew before the long curves, sake of budget cuts and downsizing trimmed the fat. Somehow, Holly managed to save her neck from it. I couldn't help but wonder how. Perhaps she had been putting those pillowy lips to good use. The nucleus of our design, the director, is observing the scene closely from his chair. He is a short and stocky man, fancying a Whipple haircut and a Van Dyke beard. He pays his taxes, owns a yacht, and feels God. Vomits up peach schnapps on the weekends and flips elderly people off when they cut him off on the highway. Just a man with a Whipple haircut. But in this room, in this chair, he is the owner of my soul. Our co-star arrives, a petite, middle-aged woman with chestnut brown hair that rests over her shoulders, her nose pocketed with freckles, eyes big enough to make owls feel uneasy, and out of the closet since her knife-teeth birthday. Between the different segments she takes part in, I often hear her in the break room talking about her trip to Honolulu Beach, where the sand is black. She says there's no feeling in the world like dipping your toes in black sand, watching the frothy waves curl up the dark sheet of volcanic minerals and lava fragments. But it is not she who I am filming with this day. It is the thing in her arms. A puppet fashioned into a pig, blessed with the name of Mr. Porkpie. His black marble eyes are asymmetrical. His snout is so crooked it almost looks broken. The seams on his left ear are starting to unravel. Not enough for the camera to notice, but give it time. And of course, atop his pink felted head is a black pork pie hat. Holly designed him herself, the magnus opus of her cheap-jack craftsmanship. I wait off-screen, out of sight, while Mr. Porkpie is positioned on the examination table, his handler seated behind him. The studio lights flare up on their fixtures, bright and all-seeing. They leave the amorphous blotches beneath my eyelids every time I blink. I think about the celluloid burning and bubbling into the widening anus of the projector screen. Here it comes! Another wave of jagged, pressurized pain. More blood trying to pump through the tight veins in my head. "Quiet on the set! Quiet on the set!" the assistant director cell yells, followed by, "Sound ready!" The sound cells reply. "Camera ready!" The camera cells reply. "Roll sound! Roll camera! Marker!" The clapper cell says as it clacks the film slate. Then Mr. Director, the owner of my soul, yells, "Action!" The scene begins with Mr. Porkpie rubbing his cloven pig fingers over his sizable pink belly. He heaves a heavy sigh. I step into the frame, a clipboard pinned to my side. "Hey there, Mr. Porkpie!" My voice cheerful and raised to an authentic Dr.Sammy octave. "Hi there, Dr.Sammy!" Mr. Porkpie replies pitifully. "You aren't looking so good. Is something wrong?" The piggish head shakes and replies in a bubbly southern accent. "I reckon there is, Doc. I ain't feeling too good today." My face molds into a worried expression. "Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. What do you say we figure out what is going on?" "That'd be mighty fine right now." I bring out the stethoscope, trying to hide the cracked piece of tubing with my thumb, the part of the aerial tube where the missing earpiece presses uncomfortably against my eardrum. "All right, we're going to start off with checking your heart." "Is it going to hurt?" Mr. Porkpie asked. "Not at all. Remember, doctors are just here to help you," I say, and press the diaphragm against Mr. Porkpie's chest. There's no pulse, nor will there ever be. "Sounds good." I nod as I bring out the wooden tongue depressor. "All right, say ah," I tell him. Inside the filter, Mr. Porkpie's mouth is a bent piece of plastic that creates a hinge for the upper and lower jaw. "Ah!" he says, opening his mouth. I press the wooden tool atop the non-existent tongue. Perfect. Now let's check your ears.
Is it going to hurt, Doc?
Not one bit. I place the speculum tip of the otoscope into each of his floppy ears. I think about accidentally catching the loose seam and accidentally tugging his ear off. Oops, did that hurt? Sorry, Harley. Lastly, I bring out the reflex hammer. The handle has been bent since the day I arrived at the studio, most likely from poor shipment handling. Holly said it was hardly noticeable.
Just hold it like this,
she says.
See? It's perfectly fine.
No, Holly. It is far from perfect. Much like yourself, you've made a mistake.
No way,
Mr. Porkpie says.
This is going to hurt, I just know it.
I promise that it won't, okay?
Oh, shucks, all right.
Lightly, I strike his kneecap. From behind the examination table, an unseen wire is pulled, making his leg jerk upward. I scratch my chin with a puzzled look on my face. Nothing seems to be the problem. Why does it not feel right? Again, Mr. Porkpie rubs his cloven hoof hand over his stomach.
I was just having me some lunch, and my stomach started hurting something bad.
What were you eating?
Duh, just what I always eat. Ice cream, pizza, hamburgers, soda, chocolate.
And how many pieces of fruit or vegetables have you had today? I asked him with a raised eyebrow. Mr. Porkpie looks down and he makes a prolonged sound and then shrugs.
I can't think of any.
I cross both my arms and shake my head disappointingly. Mr. Porkpie, what have I told you? You need to practice healthier eating habits. For a moment I can hear the echoes of my mother in my voice. Mr. Porkpie sighs, or rather the woman currently fisting him sighs.
It's not fair, Dr. Sammy. I should get to eat the food I want.
You can, Mr. Porkpie. I pat his shoulder and explain. But that stomachache you're feeling is what happens when you've overdone it. It's okay to eat your favorite foods as long as you also consider moderation. Your body, and also mine, need a healthy dose of certain food groups to keep it strong and healthy.
Oh, I didn't know any other foods to eat. Where'd I even start?
Allow me, I say as I disappear momentarily and return with a large cart. Printed over is a large pyramid of the major food groups, and together Mr. Porkpie and I discuss each of these sections and the importance of each of them. I can hear myself talking, the lines leaping flawlessly off my tongue like a fleshy conveyor belt of words, but my mind has already started to drift. I think about the woman who lives 3 doors down from me. On my way to the stairs, I always pass her by the door. This morning, she was already on her way out with her son, clasped between his small fingers with his mother's smartphone. From the phone's small speaker, I hear a familiar voice. My voice. No, Dr. Sammy's voice. The child was watching an episode of Blue Avenue, his eyes affixed to the device full of light and infinite voices, his mind full of web-like strands weaving to simple rudimentary thoughts of wonder and curiosity. The second step on pyramid is for proteins like meat, fish, eggs. Protein, Mr. Porkpie, will help power your body with essential nutrients. His mother glances at me for a moment and looks elsewhere. Of course. Why not? At that moment, I'm not the face with the golden grin or the well-chiseled thoughts planting ideas in her child's brain. I'm the man who lives 3 doors down, the one who doesn't talk to anyone, the one whose eyes devoid of sleep and cheeks blooming with spider veins, the one who hates the name Harley, the corpse behind Dr. Sammy. Next, we have the 4th step, especially for fruits and vegetables. These foods fill our bodies with plenty of vitamins and minerals. Doctors, and I do mean myself, recommend you to eat these up 5 times a day. Your body will thank you.
I want my body to thank me.
I think about her child's future. What does he want to grow up to be? Will she support his dreams? Or is he merely a vessel to fulfill her own goals? Get rich, become famous, and now your turn to take care of Mummy? My father wanted to smoke on private jets. He wanted to eat expensive foods, host snobby fancy parties, and die blissfully slowly in a mansion overlooking the ocean. His child was the key to this, the secret solution to his hard life. Surely if he could shape his little boy into the next big sensation, his dreams would be met. What did I want to be when I grew up? I can't remember. How many of my dreams were fed to the acting bug, stuffed down into its infinitely greedy throat? All the forced theater classes, all the sleepless nights, memorizing scripts, all the judgmental eyes burning smiles into you, all the things cameras conveniently never saw. It was never enough. Lie to the limelight. What's next? I think about grabbing something, digging my fingers into the bundle of pink that is Mr. Pork Pie's throat. I think about holding him down against the examination table. I think about the bright glint of a knife in my hand. There is sound, a well-muffled thump as the silver sinks between the pink folds. I can feel my ribs rattle from the chaotic pulses leaving my heart. Another sound, a sharp gasp. Quiet, please. I feel Mr. Pork Pie try to push me. I feel sharp nails hook into my left arm. Pointless. Deeper still, the knife pushes further, separating more of the yielding layers. I grip the buried handle and force it to slide downward, a straight seam down the chest, splitting through the stubborn-born fatty tissues. Rich and metallic smells fuse with the air. Blood bubbles out the newly opened cleft. We've struck oil, hallelujah! I pull apart the gristly flaps of the cavity and reach inside. So many new textures, a hidden world of membranes, and matter in its most raw form. I explore deeper, squeezing past the field of slender curved ribs. Within the meat of fibrous strands, my fingers reach the stomach. I pull, and I tug a few times until it's coaxed out of its moist, gleaming nest. I hold it, the ugly, swollen thing, up for the camera to see. All right, kids, I say with a Dr.Sammy smile. This is Pig's stomach. It can hold up to 8 pounds of food. Why don't we open it up and take a peek inside? Now that's educational. Now that is television. I think about all the questions being wafted around the studio lately. The sort of questions that are starting to annoy me. Where's Holly been? No idea. I punched the knife through another persistent sheet of muscle. Dark and dribbling streaks stain the blue upholstery. Every excavating stroke reveals a new, undisturbed territory of connective tissue. Something splits in half. Intestines most likely. Has anyone seen Holly? Can help you there. Hello? Ollie Holly Oxenfree. I reach back into the newly opened doorway of flayed flesh. This time pulling out a kidney, holding the dripping, oversized bean-like thing in my hand like holds onto an apple. Then I start squeezing. I squeeze it until it pops, like a party decoration filled with wet crimson confetti. Some blood catches my cheek, mixing with the sweat and the runny red tendrils. What's next? I blink 2, 3 times. It all comes back. The bright throbbing lights, the vibrant dose of pain behind my eyes, the face of the director staring daggers into me.
Dr. Sammy?
Mr. Pork Pie asked, bobs his head, and then asked again,
"What's next?"
My cheeks contract and lift, constructing a tender smile. Sorry, Mr. Pork Pie, let's continue. The scene finishes with Mr. Pork Pie learning an important lesson with Dr.Sammy wishing him and the audience luck with their eating habits. After one other reshoot, just for good measure, Dr.Sammy's segment is over for the day. I leave the studio floor and head back to my dressing room. On the way there, a tight, acidic knot forms my insides. I stop by the break room to put something on my stomach. There's nothing left. A graveyard of stained plates, dirty silverware, and food containers still lining the tables, mockingly empty. Picked clean. Never enough to go around, all because of Angela, our sole caterer. Refreshments were served on her time, her dime. It was no coincidence that food was readily available when particular people wanted it to be. Angela's hand-picked favorites. Any so kept out of her nepotistic ring were hungry. I've complained about the favoritism. I've complained severely about it. Still her bias is kept plump and consistent. I think about Angela and how much I hate her.